Who we are, PCS Mobile. We're going to be talking about Cradlepoint, a manufacturer that we resell, and their SD-WAN solutions. Again, I'm the presenter, Drew Dale. I'm the solutions engineer here at PCS Mobile. A couple of quick housekeeping items. Everyone should be in a mute-only mode. If you do have questions that do come up, please feel free to submit them to the chat, though they won't be addressed until the end, if time permits. If any questions do come up that you need a little more follow-up, please feel free to contact me directly. Any of the contact avenues available on the screen. So with that, let's get things started. We've got a couple exciting topics to talk about today in terms of Cradlepoint and their SD-WAN offering. So first, today's agenda, we'll run down what exactly we're going to be talking about. First, we'll go over introductions to PCS Mobile. For those of you who don't know us well, we'll make sure that you do. We'll also go over the manufacturer, Cradlepoint, who we'll be talking about today for both their hardware and software platforms. We'll go over some industry news and movements that are taking place in the technology space so that we can talk about them and how we're going to address them. Specifically, when we address them, how are we addressing them with Cradlepoint's software-defined wide area networking solution? And then we'll also go over some of the use cases or some of the alleviations that this solution can provide to anyone there out in the field. So PCS Mobile, to start, we are headquartered here in Denver, Colorado. We've been in business for about 25 years, do about $20 to $35 million annually in business. We're privately woman-owned. We have a professional sales team sprinkled throughout the country. We have satellite offices in Houston as well as Phoenix. We have not only qualified salespeople, but we have qualified technicians that are our technicians. We don't outsource them; they're our guys. We are very, very proud of that fact, since we take a lot of time to train and have very highly competent technicians with us. So a little PCS mantra, if you will. We provide proven technology solutions for the mobile workforce to gather and access information, and the means to manage these mobile resources anywhere and at any time. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today: is how many different mobile devices are out there, how we have different initiatives going on, some of the common roadblocks that come up, and then how PCS Mobile has come to market with a solution from Cradlepoint that helps alleviate some of those problems. So to start and do a little introduction on who we're talking about in the manufacturing set that we're representing, we have a little video here for you, manufactured by Cradlepoint. So if you can, take a watch and listen. It's a quick little video.
Every day, IT and network decision makers are being asked to do more. More applications, more reliability, more speed, more analytics and security. Why? Because customers, employees, and even you expect more. So how do you quickly extend, complement, and augment your existing network at a fraction of the cost with less complexity? It's simple. You wire less with software-defined wireless and wired WAN solutions from Cradlepoint. Software-defined technology is quickly transforming the traditional private network approach because it can do more, and it can do it faster than ever with instant overlay network services. It's the linchpin for the Internet of Things, an enabler for business at the edge, a software-defined platform for innovation and speed to market, and an incubator for new products and services. In fact, business strategies today hinge on how quickly and easily their wide area network is deployed and managed in their existing network. Software-defined wireless is here, and you need to wire less to compete. Cradlepoint's software-defined wireless and wired WAN solutions help traditional networks gain new levels of security, reliability, performance, and flexibility. That's why enterprises are not just turning to wireless, they're turning to Cradlepoint to help scale and complement their existing network. 75% of the top retailers, nearly 50% of Fortune 100 companies, thousands of small and mid-sized businesses, they all depend on Cradlepoint network solutions to enable their business. Cradlepoint is the solution of choice for mission-critical wireless. The top 25 most populated cities in the U.S. trust Cradlepoint for first responder, mass transit, and smart city networks. Gain the flexibility, speed, and security you need to take your enterprise to new and innovative places. places you can only go with Cradlepoint. Do more for your enterprise. Wire less with Cradlepoint, the leader in software-defined wireless and wired WAN solutions.
Awesome. So that's a quick snapshot of the manufacturer we're talking about. On screen, we've got a little bit more detail. So Cradlepoint originally started in 2006. They really defined the space of wireless communications over cellular. They developed devices that are specific to use case, utilizing cellular technology, whether it be 2G, 3G, 4G, LTE, and soon to come 5G. They really made their standing there, and as that space has progressed and as the complexities of our network demands increase, Cradlepoint's been very responsive to not only market demand, but customer requests as well. So we'll take a little look at some of their use cases, some of their product offerings here shortly. But I did want to talk quickly about some of the keynote statistics here. Is that Cradlepoint is currently deployed and actively running in 100% of the top 25 populated U.S. cities. It's a proven solution that's shown itself to work in different facets of any organization or city, department, or agency. They have a full swath of product offerings from not just hardware, but software as well. One of the real keynotes about Cradlepoint is something that's documented and they very much are proud of over there at Cradlepoint is that they have a documented 99.99% uptime for connectivity. That's relatively unheard of in the wireless space in terms of communication, session persistence, and resilience. And they really do have a 99.99% documented uptime and connectivity. So Cradlepoint as it stands right now, they do break out their solutions based off of market segmentation. So you can see on the screen there, we've got branch networks, mobile networks, and IoT devices. A quick snapshot of what those look like. A branch would be a dispatch center or your command post, if you will. Your mobile environments will be fire truck, police car, mobile transit, mobile study hall. And your IoT devices are the security cameras, POS systems, remote monitoring, SCADA applications, things like that. You'll also see on there some of the use cases or case studies rather that Cradlepoint's published. One with LA Unified School Districts that does a mobile library. Indianapolis Fire, they've got Cradlepoint in their fire trucks for wireless communications, remote monitoring, and GPS. South Carolina State actually has a wireless network set up throughout the state parks, so patrons can get onto Wi-Fi and use it. It's all done over cellular. So again, that's kind of the snapshot of who Cradlepoint is, and we'll dig a little deeper to some of their product offerings. So Cradlepoint, as mentioned earlier, is a nimble company. They've been around since 2006, about 500 employees, and they've found that making one box that fits all doesn't necessarily work in all applications. The device that you're going to need that goes into a vehicle isn't necessarily the same device you're going to put at the back of your Cisco ASA. So responding to market demands, Cradlepoint's segmented their solution set, also complemented with their software. So for those call that are in charge of deployments, maybe for a fire or a PD or a city deployment for utility vehicles, you know the struggle that it is to get connectivity to those vehicles for real-time connection. It's hard to manage them. It's hard to get all the feature sets you want in one box. Cradlepoint did the best they could, and frankly, they're some of the leaders in the space of getting all those different features into one box. Some of their newer solutions are presented on screen. So starting from the left for the in-vehicle network, this is the Core IVR 1700. It's a brand new device. Some of the bells and whistles on it are 3x3 Wi-Fi, Wave 2 Wi-Fi. It has GPS possibilities for it for both online and offline mapping. So for offloading to a CAD, MDT, or AVL system, it can pull it all in real time. You can do things like ODB2 diagnostics you can tie into. You can tie into e-logging if you have a trucking company of sorts. Similarly, you have that IVR 900 series for those that need an in-vehicle network that aren't necessarily as demanding in terms of onboard diagnostics, 3x3 Wi-Fi. You have the little brother, if you will, of the 1700 there represented in the IVR 900. Those two devices are incredibly robust. They utilize cellular connectivity to pull the fastest available speeds down to the device and redistribute as Wi-Fi. We'll take a look in the next slide of what a connected vehicle looks like. We can go into the minutia of speeds and download speeds. They have category 6 modems that are capable of 300 down to 150 up. all the way down to your 2G EVDO HSPA plus connection speeds. Another piece of them is like we talked about, the segmentation for product line. So we've got the branch solutions, and branch can also be looked at as HQ, headquarters, essentially a fixed location that you're doing business. So their newest product offering is the Air 2200. It has a 3 modem set inside of it for cellular connectivity. You can actually aggregate against 3 different cell carriers to really increase that pipe. It's got a category 6 modem in it. Again, it's available in LTE, HSPA+, EVDO. 4-port PoE plus on the back of it, 8-port switch, all interchangeable. It's really a one-stop shop device for setting up connectivity either instantly or having this run as a failover scenario where you have your ISP in line with the device, and then the device notices ISP goes down and goes over to a cellular connection, keeping your business up and operational. The Air 1600, right to the right-hand side of it there, a very similar device in the Air 2200. Doesn't have all the same bells and whistles. It does not have the PoE plus ports on the back, only has a 2 radio module for it, so you can't do 3 carrier aggregation at the same time. It has 1 embedded MC400 cellular module. So those are the newest offerings from Cradlepoint. They do have other product sets specific to SCADA, remote monitoring, as well, just pure failover. So if internet goes down in, let's say your dispatch center, ISP fails, you can use a cellular backup as a connection option. So we mentioned it just a moment ago. What's going on in the vehicle landscape, and this is a good snapshot too of what your branch offices are starting to look like, or your dispatch centers, or your HQ for that matter. Essentially, you've got a Cradlepoint device in there that is going to be connecting all the different devices. You have everything on this police car from a dash cam to an LPR camera, license plate recognition, your MDT or your MDC. It's all broadcasted over Wi-Fi. You can broadcast 2 different networks if you want to segment traffic. It'll connect a body cam, a tablet, and then really any other peripheral nodes you want to put into a vehicle. The device that goes in the vehicle can support 156 Wi-Fi clients. If you have 156 devices in your vehicle with Wi-Fi, power to you. That's a little difficult, but it can definitely support the strain that a network would need. So again, if we extrapolate this to a branch office, maybe we have 10 terminal workstations, we've got 10 CCTV cameras, we've got a server, all those different devices. On top of that, you've got your employees' Wi-Fi devices, enabled devices, laptops, so on and so forth. Really, it's meant to illustrate the constant demand on network needs, and how Cradlepoint's coming up with solutions that can not only be resilient, session persistent, but secure, which is pretty much rare to do, and also at the same time fall in line with different compliances. So with what Cradlepoint offers and what we're talking about today, we're going to take a look at some of the demands now coming on to the marketplace, whether you're a fire agency and you're a one-man IT staff, or you're a large city agency of some kind who's got an entire IT staff dedicated to these types of projects. There's new and upcoming things coming out in the industry that are definitely being talked about, and we're going to talk about a few of them here on the next slide, and then after that we'll address how some agencies are kind of combating it. So with industry news and trends, really we see a couple of different things. We're going to talk about a couple of key ones here. So the first one is connecting people, places, and things. We saw in that previous slide, there's more and more devices coming online that want to be connected to the internet and you want to have visibility on. The real complexities there from any city IT group, fire, PD, or enterprise IT group is, how do I bring all these different devices online? How do I make them secure? And how do I connect them all in a seamless fashion? It's a lot easier said than done for those of us who have worked on those types of projects or understand the complexities. That alone is very difficult. Some of the other things that are common in the industry or that's coming up is there's some new faces in the hardware space. We have some of those legacy manufacturers that we all know about, Cisco, Sierra, so on and so forth, but we have some new players to the game, specifically with Cradlepoint coming out in 2006 and some of the other SD-WAN offerings out there. So how is it that you get to know these new manufacturers? How is it that you get to feel comfortable with these new solution sets, given some of us out there might be some legacy Cisco partners, so on and so forth. So that is definitely being talked about. How is it that we address all these new manufacturers? Another big one that keeps coming up, security issues, whether it be FIPS, HIPAA, PCI compliance, CGIS. How is it that we can ensure that a solution that we're putting in place, either into our PD vehicles, our utility vehicles, our ambulances, our remote nurse care, how is it that we're putting them in there that we still stay in compliance with all the different rules and regulations out there? For those of us who have taken a look at those standards or those compliance metrics, it's complex. It's not simple. So to have a solution that can assist in that, or at least give you a platform to be compliant, would be huge. Another big piece that's being talked about in the first responder space and just in the cellular space is 5G and FirstNet. Half the people I talk to about FirstNet think it's a myth, that it won't actually happen. The other people I talk to are convinced it's being rolled out and it's been around. Truth of the matter is, it's being pressed forward. It will be here and it will be around. There will be a time, an inflection point, if you will, where you need to make a decision as either an agency, city, or department on whether or not you want to move forward or what you're going to do about this. So it's definitely being talked about in the FirstNet space and the first responder space. 5G. Now, this is something that's very new. Some of us have maybe thought, oh, it makes sense, 4G to 5G cellular connection. But what's really going on there? So with 5G, once you start getting into the technical details of it, it's a very complex system. It's capable of almost 20 megs down and I believe 10 megs up. It'll augment fiber lines. It will augment needing any terrestrial lines really laid when that gets fully deployed. Some of the caveats though to 5G are it's short spectrum, so you don't have a lot of distance. You'll need a lot of APs. You'll need a lot of infrastructure build out there. So something that it is coming. 5G will be around. You've got Verizon and AT&T right now testing in certain parts of the country. So it's coming. And what is it that your particular department, agency, or county is doing to address 5G when it hits? Because it's something that you're going to want to take advantage of once it does roll out. So how are you positioning yourselves now to take advantage? Some of the other components that are being talked about in our space from a city first responder perspective is evidence management. We have all these different devices coming online. We have all these new, videos, dash cams, so on and so forth. How is it that I can manage this data that's flying through? How is it that I'm going to be able to keep track of 100 police officers with dash cams that use cellular to connect? How is that going to happen? Device maintenance and support. So again, talking to the piece of adding all these different devices in a car, how is it that you're going to go about managing them and supporting all those different types of devices? How is it that you can kind of make this more of a manageable solution for yourself or your IT staff? Another big piece to this is network complexity, right? So as we add devices into any particular network, we need to make sure that we are addressing for it on the networking side and how we set things up. Setting up DMZs, DHCP reservations, DNS servers, so on and so forth. Really, it becomes a very complex mesh, even adding in one wave of devices. So how is it that current cities, agencies are going about addressing this? Continuing on with some of the news and trends that are coming up are, it's a commonplace, but it's still being talked about, more demands on IT staff. I think that a lot of us on call are seeing more and more demands placed on an IT staff without necessarily more budget or headcount. So how is it that, again, with all these things going on, how are we accounting for these things? And then lastly, and I think it's a really important piece, is scalability of a solution. Say you assign someone within your department or agency, the task of looking up a great wireless solution, whether it be an access point or in-vehicle router. That's great if it's vetted, but how well can this scale? Can we put this out in 100 vehicles easily, 200, 300, 1,000? How scalable is the solution that we're looking at, either it be a hardware perspective or a software perspective? So these are some of the major news or trends that are being talked about in the IT industry. Again, the conversation's more around, we see these coming, how is it that we're going to address them? So on the next slide, we're going to take a look at some of the common problems that arise from doing some of these. And if you start to address some of these problems, what is it that some of the first roadblocks that we see? All right, so common roadblocks. There are a few common roadblocks for cities or companies looking to address upcoming trends. So we might acknowledge that some of these things are coming, some of these things are in the immediate future, but how are we going to go about it? And if we do, what should we start accounting for? So some of the things that pop up when we start talking about 5G, wireless, and connectivity is most people come back and say connection drops too often. And up to this point, I might agree. I might actually say to them, I bet it has. But I also, at the same time, bet you've been using a consumer level device. Not a lot of people have taken the time, since this is so new, to really vet connectivity solutions for wireless connection. So yeah, up to this point, cellular connection has been an issue. But once you start diving into some of the manufacturers, like Cradlepoint specifically, to utilize proprietary drivers and external antennas, you find yourself getting a much more robust connection that's actually documented at 99.99%. IT ability to filter content, manage data, and connect multiple devices, right? So we talked about that earlier with bringing on so many more devices. How is it that, if I put a new laptop out there, I don't miss a filtering service? How is it that I can keep my utility guys from going to malicious sites that they might download malware, virus, a Trojan, so on and so forth? So how is it that IT is going to have the ability to do this across a wide swath of devices, right? That's a big challenge. And again, up till just recently, that would have been a major obstacle. Difficult for managed fleet and user experience remotely. So how is it that I can keep my vehicles on the road? How is it that I can keep my guys working, but at the same time troubleshoot an IT issue? Because ideally, the concept here is to have uptime, people out in the field, your efficiency goes up. But how can I do that and feel comfortable about that if I'm adding in all these different devices where any one thing could take them off the road? It could be a very difficult problem to solve. And again, up to this point, I'd 100% agree, but there's now at least tools in the industry for you. Another component that pops up, and it's that first roadblock we talked about, and it's a huge one, and we all know it. It's the FIPS compliance, PCI compliance, HIPAA compliance, and CJIS compliance. So when you look at those compliance matrices, it's a lot more than just, okay, I add a device here, and now I'm compliant. There has to be many devices in that chain, or many processes within that chain that enable you to be FIPS, HIPAA compliant. So how is it that you can start with a platform that, irregardless of what device I bring in there, if it's an Apple phone, a Samsung phone, a Panasonic F31, or a Cradlepoint device, how can I bring those into the fold all at the same time, making sure that I adhere to these compliances, and let alone this platform is certified for these compliances? That's a big roadblock. And up until this point, again, we've been talking about it. I would say it's a huge one, but we have a solve here shortly. Another one that comes up all the time is once you start talking about this is operating systems. So I just mentioned it with the example of if I bring in an Apple device and I bring in a Samsung device, how is it that I can make those all kind of adhere to the same policy in an efficient manner without me taking the time to, one by one, manage the devices? Traditionally, a very difficult thing to do, not easy. But up to this point, and you'll see it's a recurring theme, up to this point, it hasn't really been doable. You need to use some type of mobile device management, third-party platform that may or may not work with certain operating systems. Now, you actually have a tool at your disposal to take care of these things. And the biggie, limited IT staff and budget. So even if we combat, all these different problems that are going on, we're able to overcome the operating systems, we're able to overcome the content filtering and data management. Well, I'm only one guy. And usually that one IT member, for those of you on the call who share this pain, there's a lot being asked of you with very little time. So how is it that you can go into a project, whether it be mobile connectivity for in-vehicle solutions or band 14 access for your police vehicles? How is it that one person is going to combat these and actually go forward with a solution? Well, again, up to this point, you wouldn't really have a one pane of glass, if you will, to do that. But Cradlepoint, again, come to market with a solution that will take care of that. So we talked about some of the common roadblocks here. I think that these are relatively universal across the different agencies, cities, counties, enterprise customers, so on and so forth. And they're roadblocks that have been coming up. But we're going to take a look at what some of your peers and our peers in the industry have been doing and some of the alleviation they've done because of it in the next slide. So, IT managers in nearly every industry are taking advantage of the benefits Cradlepoint's cloud-managed software-defined networking solution has. So to talk about that and what are some of the alleviations, and I'm sure that some of us up to this point are saying, okay, I understand Cradlepoint, cellular, but what's this SD-WAN business? We'll break that down here shortly, but really want to talk to the benefits behind the platform and what some of our peers have seen. So we've seen things like advanced security certifications, bringing into a platform, Cradlepoint's SD-WAN platform, any device running it, you are then putting that device on a CGIS, FIPS, HIPAA compliant platform. A huge time saver from looking through the weeds of, well, maybe this platform won't work for that OS, so on and so forth. Well, if you have an overlay to any device that goes out there that is FIPS, HIPAA, CGIS, or PCI compliant, you're awesome. You're off and running. Long-term ROI. Now, this is an important piece, especially talking back to that last roadblock when we said that one IT staff member who doesn't have the time to do this. The long-term ROI comes into play here. Once you deploy, first your ROI comes from time of deployment. It's a very quick solution to deploy. It minimizes how much research needs to go into the platform itself. Not saying you shouldn't do your due diligence in it, but because of some of the things that are already checked off the boxes, if you will, it reduces that time. As well, from an ROI perspective, time and investment into fixing solutions. I'm sure that there's quite a few number of us on the call today that have spent hours behind a computer trying to fix any one number of problems, and yet our task list is just increasing. Actual operational tasks, service tasks, so on and so forth. How are we going to combat those? And again, with this, that ROI comes from not having to do it. One of the best feedbacks about this particular solution set and this particular manufacturer is that it just works. So if you actually deploy solutions out there that you're not spending just as much time fixing, but you're actually able to deploy them with the confidence knowing that this is going to work, you save yourself the assets and resources usually dedicated to troubleshooting those solutions. The scale of a solution. So these solutions can scale as large or as small as we need to. If you're a PD or a fire agency that has maybe 6 trucks, 30 firemen, so on and so forth, not very large. Or if you're a city like Los Angeles, where you have thousands and thousands of devices, you've got thousands of employees, you've got moving vehicles, fire, PD, utility workers, train workers, this solution can scale to any of that magnitude and anything in between. So from a deployment and scalability standpoint, definitely checks that box. From an open architecture standpoint, so we also talked about some of us out there that are somewhat legacy in that we've been a Cisco shop. We've always been a Cisco shop. Maybe you're seeing some needs that's not being offered by Cisco, or you maybe want to take a look at some of the other offerings. This platform doesn't need you to rip and replace hardware. Because it's a BYOD type environment, you're able to bring into the fold really any devices that you currently have. We'll show here shortly some of the operating systems that it can go on. But this platform can be either on a client level, on a server level, it doesn't matter. Another big piece of this is security. So the platform itself, Cradlepoint's SD-WAN offering has an AES 256-bit encryption from end to end. So it's a completely encrypted transmission, irregardless of what internet source you are using. Another big one on this, kind of parlaying from that point, is session persistence. I think a lot of us out there have used traditional VPN methods, whether it be a NetMotion, a Cisco mobility client, so on and so forth. We know that there are some pitfalls there with that type of technology. If we're switching APs, you might need to re-authenticate because your IP address has changed. One login screen, you might have different authentication points. It can be a little cumbersome. With this platform, however, it makes things a little bit more streamlined. It's something that runs in the background. It is irregardless of what AP you hop onto, so your session persistence is consistent. Irregardless if you switch from HQ's Wi-Fi where you're on the LAN and you go home and you need to work, doesn't matter. You don't need to re-authenticate since it's running in the background already. Somewhat different than some of those traditional VPN solutions out there. But again, this isn't just a VPN solution. This is a full networking solution for everyone on call. And another piece of this is that it future-proofs your network. All of us in the IT world look at that concept with a lot of skepticism, future-proofing something, because there's so many new devices coming out. There's a new this, a new firmware that, it's got new features, this, that, or the other. And the reason that this really allows you to future-proof that is the combination of the hardware software. You've got hardware in place that can give you uptime of 99.99%. It is set up so that once 5G rolls out, you can switch out a cellular module and you're off and running. So you don't need to replace anything too major. When FirstNet deploys in your particular area and you want to get on board with that program, Cradlepoint already has FirstNet certified cellular modems that you can hop onto. From the software side, future-proofing your network, because this this solution is so easy to deploy and it's so scalable and so robust, you really have the ability to look forward in your agency. If you see yourself getting 100 vehicles in 5 years, but you know that's not something you can account for today, well, now you can. You have a solution that can scale to that size and provide you all the same connectivity that you need, as well as all the different certifications, whether it be for HIPAA, FIPS, CGIS, or PCI. So those are some of the benefits kind of coming from what peers in the industry are using this platform for. But I'm sure a lot of us are sitting on call kind of going, okay, again, got Cradlepoint, I'm understanding it, but what's this SD-WAN thing? How is it really helping things out? So on the next slide, we'll take a look at the definition of it, and we'll talk about it just a bit. So what is SD-WAN? A software-defined wide area network is defined as a specific application or software-defined network technology applied to WAN connections, which are used to connect enterprise networks, including branch offices and data centers over large geographic distances. So if you think about it, by definition, a lot of us have kind of been doing this already, right? We've got geographically diverse employees, whether it be geographically diverse in the county or across the country, maybe using a traditional VPN session to connect. The difference here and what Cradlepoint has really done is they've accounted for a few things. They've not only done that component rolled into their software, they've also accounted for kind of the future of where you're headed. A lot of the applications I think that most of us are seeing aren't necessarily on-site type applications. They're usually cloud-hosted applications that someone will have to go out to and connect to. So how do you traverse that? How do you make it so that you have one device that can connect to all these cloud applications, connect to an internal network? Doesn't matter what AP they're on. Their session persistence is robust and continuous. So again, by definition, software-defined wide area networking has actually been taking place for some time. You're seeing the name, and if you start to research it, it's coming up more and more is because the platform itself has expanded of what really SD-WAN means. So when you start to talk about Cradlepoint's platform, some of the differentiators that we'll see is LAN management, traffic shaping, analytics for layer 7 and layer 3, a little bit more than just your traditional SD-WAN. So Cradlepoint has two different offerings, if you will. So they have their NetCloud engine. That is their cloud-based management platform for all of their devices. NetCloud engine is specific to Cradlepoint devices. However, we talked about a BYOD platform. That is NetCloud Perimeter. NetCloud Perimeter is Cradlepoint's branding for their SD-WAN offering. Where in the next two slides, we're going to take a look at some of the differences between the two platforms so that we kind of have a better understanding of what it means. So again, kind of circling back, we've talked about all the different devices being brought onto a network. We've talked about the complexities of a network build out from there, the network architecture that takes. We've talked about limited IT staff. We've also talked about how do we remotely manage these devices, keeping our people on the streets off and running, and how do we make sure that we're compliant. So we've talked about all those different roadblocks or objectives, and now we're going to start looking at the platform that alleviates them with Cradlepoint's NetCloud engine and NetCloud Perimeter. So the NetCloud engine platform, like I mentioned, it's a cloud-based platform for managing Cradlepoint-specific devices. You have a bunch of different key features over there, from individual device management to group device management. You can create a golden policy off of one device, push it down to hundreds in just a matter of minutes. These are carrier agnostic in that you can flash firmware all over the place through the cloud platform. So if you're moving between Sprint, Telus, Bell, Verizon, AT&T, you can. You can also define your smart WAN selection, SWANs, for those of us that have heard it. So we can define certain criteria to bounce between different carriers. Let's say we define throughput, signer ratios, what have you, or even specific types of traffic. I want, my video traffic being sent out via Verizon, and I want my MDT information being sent out over AT&T. All of that is configurable within the cloud management platform. Everything from user administration, different profile levels, it's all there. You can really get into the minutiae even to running reports for signal strength, data usage. All of it's available to you in this platform. It's a very robust and intuitive platform. A lot of us that have been in the industry who have seen other platforms similar, maybe one of the cause for concerns is you've noticed that a single device configuration page looks very different than a group device configuration page. minor detail, but it's still from an ease of use perspective, it would be nice, right? Well, Cradlepoint's platform is identical from an individual device to a group policy. You can copy over, you don't have to learn another instance of the software, it's all available to you. Some of the networking components that go into this platform that you can start to define are your VPN tunnels, whether that's GRE, IPsec, you name it. If there's certain tunneling protocols that we want to follow, like RIP or OSPF, you can define those in this platform as well. And again, this is a cloud-based platform, which means you do not need to take a vehicle off the street to actually administer any of these changes or do anything to the network. On this platform as well, you have content filtering available to you. You have a couple of different options. In fact, you have upstream proxies you can use. You can use whitelist, blacklist to a DNS. Really, you can build it out as you see fit. But the content filtering is available to you. Data management, we'll take a look at that on the next slide of kind of what that looks like from a snapshot of how am I kind of looking from a high level, where are my devices, so on and so forth. But speaking to the data management piece of things, you can actually get pretty granular with this. You can segment out your different connection types, how many are on LTE versus 3G or HSPA+, how many of my devices are Verizon versus AT&T, T-Mobile, so on and so forth. You can even set up alerts and event-to-action configurations in the device. So some of the devices I've deployed, I've set up alerts for data consumption at 50, 70, 80, 90, and then at 95. Just to be alerted that, hey, this particular device is consuming data like crazy. Some of us out there may not have unlimited cell plans, so data consumption is of importance. And then speaking to the event to action, you can trigger different events based off your data consumption, i.e., you reach 95% of your data threshold, what would you like to do? You can start to throttle speeds down. You can choke your QoS on the different interfaces if you want. All of that definable, even so much as to say, shut down the device once I hit my data cap because I don't want to pay my overage. That can be done as well. And to that point, you can actually switch between carriers. You can set, once my Verizon gets to 95%, I want all traffic then being routed through my AT&T SIM that's in there. All of it can be configured and is doable there in the platform. Again, this is a look at that UI from an individual device configuration page. You can see on the left there some of the standard networking and some of the advanced networking features that are available to it, from your local IP network setups to your DNS, DHCP configurations, hotspot redirects, your VLAN interfaces. All of it is an enterprise level configuration tool, but done so on an individual device level in one pane of glass. As well, you can kind of see there some of our WAN interfaces in its priority. Those are all configurable. We talked about swans being able to bounce between different WAN sources based off certain criteria that we define. So that's the NetCloud engine. That's not even the SD-WAN piece. That's just the NetCloud engine where you can remote manage and monitor all of your Cradlepoint devices that are out there. Now, in the next slide, we're going to start to talk about the SD-WAN piece, the NetCloud perimeter. Now, with NetCloud perimeter, it has a very similar UI in that it looks very similar to the NetCloud engine, but there's some different features that are available to you. We'll talk about some of those key feature sets, and also we'll take a look a little bit at the platform. So traditionally, again, this is this NetCloud engine where you have the traditional networking methods of old, whether it be a static IP route, VPN solutions, one-by-one, device management. But some of the things that are left a little short with NetCloud engine is direct communication to peripheral devices that are connected to the Cradlepoint, i.e. out-of-band management, some elaborate zone configurations, so on and so forth. So we'll take a look at some of the NetCloud perimeter key features. First and foremost, it is a BYOD platform. So you bring your own device. Really, you don't have to replace anything. You can use what's currently existing, or you can use a new device that you're bringing into the fold. So some of the key features, and you'll notice the first one underneath the key features, and I promise you this is true, 7-10-minute private network creation and deployment. You really can do it in under 10 minutes. It is a very intuitive platform in how it's designed. It's built for an invite-only type application, so you can't just go on, hop on, download. You need a profile created, so on and so forth. And it really is. It's a 10-minute configuration deployment. Obviously, the more complex you make a deployment or complex you make a network, it's going to probably take more than 10 minutes. But to really spin this up and deploy it quickly, you do it in 10. From a security standpoint, since this platform runs in the background and it's a software essentially, it's kind of an encapsulation method. So all information being sent out is being encapsulated in the perimeter platform and is encrypted with an AES 256-bit encryption. So it's a very secure platform. It's kind of referred to as a dark web of sorts. So in a way, you can kind of create your own dark web that can traverse public domains, public networks, private networks. It's a very powerful tool. Some of the other key features, custom IP schemes. So if there's specific IP schemes you want to push down to devices or what have you, you can. That long-term ROI, this is really what helps with mitigating the resources you need to allocate to manage a network, design a network, and deploy a network. This is a single pane of glass where you can do all of those things and limit how many resources you have dedicated to it. Some of the other big things about this platform, again, scalability. It can not only be created in 10 minutes and deployed, but you can push that out to thousands of devices at the same time. It's a very, very scalable platform, especially since it's a BYOD platform. There's really no limitations. Obviously, there's some caveats there. There's some limitations that'll pop up off of managed by exception scenarios. But for the most part, there's no real stop or reason why you can't scale this as large or as small as you want. Some of the other key features here is it has extended Active Directory domains for increased security. It has API integrations for any third-party applications or network applications that you might be running, or if you wanted to tie into an existing SNMP that you have or a mobile device management platform that you might have, it has an API integration for it. The neat part about this particular platform, and something I think is very unique, is that it has a software development kit and a hardware development kit, an SDK and HDK. So if you find yourself needing a particular feature set or something done in the platform that isn't pre-built, if you have some skilled coders that can write a Python script of some kind, you can go in there and then upload it into the SDK platform. Similarly, with the HDK, the hardware development kit, if you need specifics punched out or you need another Ethernet port, so on and so forth, they have the kits available for you to work on. So it's a little bit of a customizable platform, if you will, which is pretty rare, especially if we're talking about a platform that can take in any device, scalable to thousands in just minutes, and you can customize it. Kind of being a nerd over here, I think that's pretty neat. So the other features that we're going to talk about again is like the FIPS, CGIS, HIPAA compliances. These have all passed those compliances and are certified platforms for it. So when you add these or add this to your network, know that it's not going to in any way detract from your compliance metrics. If anything, it will enhance it. Out-of-band management. That's something I definitely want to talk about. With out-of-band management, imagine the ability from an IT resource perspective. If you have the ability to touch any device that's in a vehicle, a branch office, fire truck, PD, ambulance, mobile library, you can get straight to anything that's connecting to it. This platform allows you to do that. By using the Cradlepoint gateway, you put it into a branch or into a vehicle. Any device that's connected, that be either be RJ45, the standard Ethernet connection, or Wi-Fi connection, you can have direct access to it. You can hop right into it like you're doing a remote login session, if you will, which is pretty neat, especially since it allows you to keep those vehicles out on the road or your employees out there continuously working. You don't have to pull the device off. Moving more to the other more elaborate configuration pieces, there should be the ability to do traffic shaping. And if we want to segment specific traffic to go to certain destinations or to run over certain WAN interfaces or LAN interfaces, you can do so in a very quick manner. We'll take a quick second there to really soak in the power of the device. Again, BYOD platform, agnostic to carrier, agnostic to operating systems, scalable, intuitive, and secure. I think that's a platform set and a tool that a lot of us out there have wanting or needing, but have not necessarily known the direction to go. So I'm getting some feedback from our staff over here that the audio is going in and out a little bit. Are we having any problems online? Or is anyone having issues on their side? If you wouldn't mind responding to the chat log.
That's good.
Yep, choppy.
Whatever you did, it's working now.
Okay, so I'm getting some feedback that it was cutting in and out, still a little choppy, but for others, it's still working. Okay, I think we're getting some feedback that it's working better now. For the sake of everyone's time, I don't want to delay us any longer. Okay, so yeah, getting some positive feedback. It sounds great. Good deal. So to circle back, just to touch base, since that was a bit choppy for everybody, we've talked about a platform that has checked some boxes for what the industry needs are. We have a platform that allows for any device to be brought onto it. It allows for FIPS, CGIS, HIPAA, or CIPA compliance. It is scalable. You can connect to different devices in a vehicle or anywhere on your network directly. You have the ability to customize this solution from the software development kit or the hardware development kit. And again, can be 10 minutes to configure and deploy. Very powerful platform. It has a lot of intricate configurations to it that you can go into if you're a network administrator. You can start seeing some of these on screen and you're starting to probably put those together in your head. We will take a look really quick at some of the user interface slides there for the NetCloud perimeter. So again, very agnostic to operating systems. You don't necessarily need Windows. You don't need a Mac. It really supports quite a few. This is a little snapshot of some of the OSs that are available to it. And again, because this is an invite only, a lot of people can go out there and probably download this on their laptop. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. You need to have username and credentials established from an administrator side prior. So over here, and this UI, again, looks very similar to the NetCloud engine platform. This is actually, since I have Cradlepoint devices, this is actually rolled into one screen for me. So I've got my standard NetCloud engine options available to me, but right now I'm in my virtual networks. If we take a moment, we can actually look at some of those things on screen that are a little unique. We'll have GPS coordinates for these devices that are connected. We've got things like a camera connected to it for an LPR camera. We have laptops connected to it. We have client level devices for my cell phone, in fact. And we also have a gateway, which is right here down low. It's our LPR demo gateway that's got a couple devices connected behind it. Speaks to the ability just to hop right into those devices that are sitting behind any particular gateway. And again, this is just the dashboard view. So it's giving you high level information about the operating systems, what they are, who's the assigned user, what's the device name, so on and so forth. But you can see up here, there's quite a few different options available to us, whether it be making a smart zone, usage monitor for data consumption, members of a particular zone or group, all of it definable. Gateways, if we want to define certain gateways to perform certain functions, we can. All available to you in one pane of glass. So speaking to the one pane of glass component, we see here we have a lot of different devices, we have different manufacturers, we have different operating systems, yet I still have visibility to all those different devices, which from an IT perspective is huge, right? We have visibility now on all these devices on a platform that's compliant, secure, and scalable. So if we're looking at a gateway specifically, it pulls certain information about it just from the individual device. So you can see on there, it can edit IP schemes, whether it be to be a dynamic or a static IP, naming conventions for the device, host name. If it's reporting GPS, it'll pull right where it is, and that is, in fact, our office, and that's right by my desk. So that is where it is. Tell you the operating system, user information, so on and so forth. But you can pull this type of information essentially from any device that is in the NetCloud perimeter, whether it be a Panasonic, GTAC, a handheld device, a cell phone. You can get all this information. You can even get into data consumption, data monitoring, things like that. So again, looking at some of those other options available to us. We have smart zones that we can define based off of gateways that are up in the platform. It's a very robust platform, and it's a lot of information. Because this is so much information, and for some of us this is brand new, this might all sound like Chinese to somebody, but there are some key takeaways I was hoping for the group to accomplish. So we'll take a look at some of those key takeaways and as we wrap things up today. So first and foremost, Cradlepoint offers the world-leading 4G and 5G solutions purpose-built per use case. So we saw that with our IoT devices, our branch and mobile, and we saw that in our in-vehicle solutions. Another takeaway, FIPS, CGIS, SIPA, and PCI compliance platforms. So these will not deter from any compliance platform that you're working on, whether it be a bus and you take credit cards for PCI compliance, or it's a police department that has to deal with FIPS. This platform really is all-encompassing for all of it. Another takeaway, and it's a very simple takeaway, but one of the most powerful is that the platform just works. From a lot of different deployments I've done with my time at Cradlepoint and here with PCS Mobile, that's probably my favorite feedback, is that it just works. Because so many of us know how many times we go to deploy something or bench test something, and it just doesn't work. It happens all the time, and it's a huge headache and a huge pain point. But the fact that it just works is fantastic. Some of the other takeaways to talk about, from an uptime and resilience standpoint, this provides a 99.99% connectivity solution. In combination of hardware and software, it is a very resilient and persistent solution for any of your connectivity needs. The NetCloud perimeter platform, that is a BYOD platform. Again, you can bring into it essentially any device that you need to make sure that it's secure and compliant. That's a huge piece, right, from all the different OSs that are out there. Another component that I want to take away from this call for everybody is that this platform is incredibly secure and has that AES 256-bit encryption from start to finish via an encapsulation method. Another piece, another takeaway that I think is important for all of us to remember is that this platform is built for long-term ROI. And now, talking about that, we've talked about the savings on assets, resources, dedicated staff, so on and so forth, to troubleshooting issues. But another component to this ROI is that this solution is incredibly cost-effective. This is not a Ferrari price tag, if you will. This is a Pinto price tag, but for a Ferrari car. It is very cost-effective. It does not cost a lot from an operating expense standpoint. So it is positioned to really go out there and help and get involved in these environments. Another component for those of us who maybe think this is all brand new and this is very new information and I have absolutely no idea what you are talking about, but thank you for your hour. I'd like you just to remember that the ease of use of this platform and how intuitive it is. This is a very, very user-friendly platform. It is intuitive in that when I try to look for something, it is where it ought to be, not where it's hidden under some weird, systems administration, GPIO, and that's where I find GPS type scenario. Very easy to learn, very easy to manage, and very easy to deploy. So with that, those are some of the key takeaways that we have from today's presentation and some of the things that we talked about. I'd like everyone to know on call that I know this is new information. Some of us out there might be really up to things and think, hey, I've heard about this already, and that's fantastic. But for anyone that has questions or comments or want to discuss this further, please feel free to email me. My email is listed there. If you got my contact information on the first slide, feel free to reach out and give me a call and we can discuss this. But that is essentially the platform. We have a minute or so. If anyone has any questions that they want to post in the chat, we can take a look at them now. So let's see what chat questions we might have. Okay. It doesn't seem like we have too many questions at this moment. Understandable. It's a lot of information to soak in. But again, if you do have questions, please feel free to email myself. Reach out to PCS Mobile. We are a premier solutions provider for Cradlepoint and their SD-WAN offering. We're experts in it from start to finish. So please feel free to reach out. And I'd like to thank everybody for their time this morning and participation in today's call. Thank you, and everyone have a great rest of your day.